You've sailed the high seas, done some deeds, and now you have a whole bunch of principal points to spend. These unlock ships, passives that boost your production, and, more importantly to today's video, unique buildings tied to each principle. Some of them, like the Shrine of the Sea and the Great Lighthouse, are downright overpowered. And so I'm going to be ranking all of them while also highlighting some of the best principal buildings to build in the early game. But before I get into things, a quick note, almost every principal building in the game is useful for something. It's just a matter of when and how useful. As such, don't take this video too seriously. After all, why die on a hill when you can spend that time plundering the high seas instead? Though if you have played a ton of Corsair Cove and you disagree with any of my rankings, leave a comment down below, let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. I'm going to show you each building, give it a rank, and tell you why. And first up, we have the cabin. I'm going to put these in S tier, because replacing a whole bunch of tents, either 4 or 6, with one single cabin is amazing. There's 4 different options: classy, bloody, salty, and fancy. And in this case, I'm going to recommend the fancy because it costs coins, so if you have an excess of those, no other materials required. And the salty, because it costs plank and rope, which aren't used in too many other things, so they're easy to stockpile. Since I'm here, I might as well also do the houses. These aren't quite as good. I'm going to put them at A tier, because it's a lot less impactful on your space to replace 2 cabins with 1 house, or to build a bunch of houses in a cluster, than it is to replace so many tents. Also, as you can see from these 2 fancy cabins, as opposed to this fancy house, the space difference isn't that impactful. Then we have the pirate banners. These all do the exact same thing and they have the same cost. So which one should you use? Whichever one you think's pretty. They give you 4 cohesion each, meaning you'll have a bigger health pool before your run fails. And I'm going to put them in B tier, because they do their job. They're not super sexy, but I have no complaints about them either. Next up, we have a trading post. I used to have several of these. In fact, one of them was right here. I ended up deleting them. So already you can probably tell that they're not going to be getting an A or S. The purpose of a trading post is to stockpile a certain number of resources, then sell them for coins. So if you have a lot of overproduction, especially for something that's not limited, you can absolutely ferry it over to a trading post, or better yet, through a warehouse into a trading post, and sell it to get yourself some coin. But from my experience, it doesn't end up being that useful later, especially because you have to go back to manually sell the coins. So we're going to give it a B. Next up, we have the cartographer. This has 2 effects. The first is you can remotely reveal regions on the map, like this. That way, you could send a ship to an individual location without first sending it to the region. Second of all, it increases ship speed. It's fine, it does its job, and gets a B. One unfortunate thing about revealing areas with the cartographer is they don't trigger the crow's nest, and this building is awesome. It gets you 20 coins every time you trigger a discovery event. So as you explore different regions of the world, if you haven't traveled to them recently, they'll become covered in fog. Returning to it, that triggers a discovery event. And so what I like to do is stack a whole bunch of them, because the amount of coins that I get, as you can see, pretty darn sweet. It's 20 per, so after 5 discovery events, each crow's nest pays for itself. The only problem is they do take up a bit of space, so eventually you kind of run out of places to put them. But because it's so useful, I'd still say the crow's nest is an easy S tier. Next we have the cabaret, where you can gain additional coins when recruiting drifters. Now, you recruit drifters frequently, but not nearly as frequently as you explore areas. So I'm going to have to give this a C, because I feel like the cabaret is a worse version of the crow's nest, and that you also have to go through more effort to trigger each time. Next up, we have the Entertainer's Guild Hall. This boosts the all hands on deck buff, going from 50% production to 80%. But if it's a building that normally consumes resources, when you do this, it only consumes additional resources as if it were at the 50% boost. So the extra 30% productivity is free. I found that building around these does require reworking my supply chains, but it also opens up cool new possibilities. This quarry, for example, is able to supply way more buildings than it otherwise could because it's in range of an entertainer's guild hall. And so, because this building is so awesome, I'm going to give it an S tier. And I also think this is the sort of building you should go out of your way to build early. Don't get me wrong, the crow's nests are great, but you can't exactly build that many of them and spam explorations until at least the mid-game. This, as soon as you get it up and running, you can really start spamming all hands on deck, provided you have spare drifters, and it works really well. Next up, we have the Well. This is a building that specifically works in Uncharted mode, and does not do very much in story mode. Occasionally you'll get random events. Some of these come with debuffs and penalties. This reduces that. So if you're playing in Uncharted, build a couple of them. They're a bit pricey at 500 coins each. However, the loss of production is often worth more than 500 coins. That said, it's still not super exciting, so I'm going to give this a B. Now for the next building, I have to build it because I don't generally use gambling dens. What you can do here is spend coins to roll the dice, like so. And in this case, the result is 7, giving a 17.5% production boost to all the buildings within the pirate camp radius. The reason that I don't like using this is I don't think it's a great use of 120 coins when the buff it gives is random. And so for those reasons, I'm going to give the gambling den a C. Next up, we have a Gibbet. This is an interesting cohesion building because you use it to lock an unfortunate drifter in the pirate cage in exchange for +5 cohesion. If at any time you decide, oh hey, I have an event that's about to complete that's going to give me more cohesion than I have capacity for, you can go ahead and delete this real quick. You will lose the cohesion, you'll regain the materials, and the drifter will be freed. Then you can complete the event to regain the cohesion. What I like about the Gibbet is, early on, drifters are a little bit of a tight resource, but you're almost always given the option to accept more drifters from an event in exchange for losing cohesion. If you have a Gibbet, as long as the cohesion loss does not put you into a direct failure state, you can always build a few of them, think of it as borrowing cohesion, get your extra drifters, use them to grow your pirate city, and then go ahead and trade it in later. And so for that, the Gibbet gets an A. Then there's the Bounty Hunters Guild Hall, where you can hire mercenaries to obtain raid resources for you. These are usually found by plundering on the high seas, and sometimes you can run out, so in a pinch, this building is very good. But it's pretty pricey to just buy the resources here, so I tend not to do it unless I'm in a pinch. I'd much rather send my ship out and go raiding. And so for that, the Bounty Hunters Guild Hall gets a B. And you know what? While I'm at it, I might as well do the Grand Market. This building is just like the Bounty Hunters Guild Hall, but for non-raid resources. So you can get food, you can actually get wine, which is a raid good, and you can get clothing. A couple times I did use it for clothing, and it's actually kind of economical for fancy clothing, at 1 fancy clothing per like 1.2 coins. But much like the Mercenary Guild Hall, I recommend only doing this if you're in a pinch. Otherwise, you're better off setting up and maintaining your supply lines to produce the resources locally. And having a steady supply also ensures that you don't have any gaps because you were busy doing something else, like raiding the crown. For that, it also gets a B. Alright, next up we have the Brawler Arena. Here you can hold games, basically trading crew for coin. The thing is, I've always found it easier to get coins than crew members. So I haven't used this very much. I built one, never actually held any games. And as such, I'm going to give it a C. Then there's the Corsair Cuisine, a buff building specific to food production. This one is quite good if you're able to centralize a lot of your food production around one pirate camp. The more different types of food that you're building here, the more it benefits from the additional 30% boost. Keep in mind, you can stack this with an Entertainer's Guild Hall. The only downside is that means shipping all of your edible resources to one location, which can be a little bit tricky depending on how early on you are. Also keep in mind that both this building and even the Entertainer's Guild Hall might be less effective on super high difficulties when you reduce the radius of your pirate camp. Either way, it's still very good, so I'm going to give it an A. The Loan Shark, where you can take a loan to get a certain amount of coin immediately. Just keep in mind, you'll have to pay it back over time. Now, the Loan Shark gives a generous amount of coin. However, I've found it's easy enough to obtain coin that I don't think this is worth it, as it does have to be paid back. So personally, I'm going to put the Loan Shark in C, but if you are a big Loan Shark fan, please comment down below and tell me why. Next up is the Mercenary Guild Hall. This is a structure that boosts defensive structures. And it's going straight into C, because I don't think defensive structures are particularly valuable. I have one defensive structure. It's called a destroyer-class ship, and it's going to vaporize anything the Crown sends at me. Okay, that's not quite true. I do have a defensive building, which I'm going to cover later in this tier list, but I don't rely on it. It's just something that allows me to be a little bit lazy from time to time. So, the Mercenary Guild Hall goes in C because I don't find it that useful. On the other hand, I do find the salvage dock to be useful, because this reduces ship construction and repair costs. As a note, it's multiplicative, so 5 of them does not mean your ships are free. Very cheap, but not free. So it's a very good building, but it's going in B tier, and that's because there's another building that does its job but better. On to that in just a minute. Because for now, I want to talk about the Rising Sun, where you can spend coin to then recruit drifters. And this is fine, but you'll notice that the prices are quite high. And the problem with that is there's a region called Buccaneer's End. I'm just going to go ahead and reveal this, because there's an event called the Bloody Bastille. This is a giant prison full of pirates, aka drifters. They're free here, or at the very least very cheap. So every time that I go, I'm short on drifters, maybe I should build a Rising Sun. Instead, I head over to the Bloody Bastille, break a few pirates out, and get even more bang for my buck. As a result, the Rising Sun goes into C tier. Now, remember how I said the salvage dock was good, but there's something that does its job better? That would be the Shipwrights Guild Hall, which reduces the construction and repair costs by 50%. And I wasn't a math major, so I could be wrong, but I think 50 is greater than 20. So the Shipwrights Guild Hall is also multiplicative. It's amazing, it makes it super cheap to build and maintain ships. I would give it an S, but because there's technically another building that also does its job, I'm going to bump it down to A. Still very good, and you should build at least 3 of them. Can build 4, I think 3 does it though. Next up we have the Shrine of the Sea. This is a unique building that buffs ships as they complete events out at sea. So, for example, I've completed an event here. I've completed a few events actually. I have +5 boarding damage, +5 gun damage, +5 maneuverability. On a tier 6 ship, that doesn't make a big difference in the stats. But on a tier 1, 2, or 3 ship, it is a world of difference. Hell, even on tier 4s. Now, it's not too often that I tribute 300 coins to buff all of my ships. Usually I just do a bunch of events, because there's also a really neat trick here. Let's say I've done some stuff, my ship has used its supplies. I'd have to return to port, meaning I'd lose my sea legs. No, I don't. I can go to any of these friendly ports in most of the regions of the 7 seas. And because this is not the home pier, the sea legs buff is maintained. You would go, I'll repair the ship, buy some supplies, exit, sea legs buff is intact. So, because the buffs are awesome and easy to maintain, this gets an S tier. Another building that gets an S tier is the Spy Nest. This extends a pirate camp's range beyond the default. Now, this does not stack. You only get 1 per camp, but it is very impactful. Now, how impactful is this? Well, this is a default pirate camp radius, and this is a pirate camp radius with a spy nest. As you can see, it is much bigger, it's way easier to fit resources in the radius, and it's easier to build robust supply chains. Next up, there's the statue. This is a stackable building that gives you extra drifters every time a ship arrives with recruits, which again, good in Uncharted mode, not good in story mode. Already it's going to lose a couple points just for that. The second problem I have is it's only 3, and you can recruit way too many drifters for that to be hugely impactful without spending thousands of gold. So in theory, it's cool, maybe if I was super pressed for drifters. In practice, I'm just going to go raid the Bloody Bastille. This goes in C tier. Then we have a Voodoo Shack. This allows you to curse opponents' dice in 7 Seas events. So it's another way to be a little bit more efficient. For example, here, I could enter the event normally, or enter and curse dice, meaning the opponent would always roll 1s. This is particularly impactful on things like Edge or Parlay, where dice rolls matter over stats. It's far less important in an event like this, where I'm using a tier 6 ship to fight a tier 2 ship. After you use the buff, it takes a little bit to recharge. It's really good to have, you only need one of them, so A tier. Then there's a Quartermaster. This is a late game building that sort of works like a trading post. So you connect it to a resource. You know what? Let's just grab a couple of cannonballs as an example. You stockpile that resource in the Quartermaster. Then, if you have enough, you can trade them in for cohesion. It also gives bonus cohesion every time you complete a discovery event. So the same trigger as the Crow's Nest. This building is fine. It's getting a B. I don't use it very much because I haven't really had any cohesion issues. If I did, though, it would synergize particularly well with a Gibbet. Build a Gibbet in the short term, use the Quartermaster to fill the gap in the long term. Next up, the first tier 5 building I've talked about, the Great Lighthouse. Reduces crew upkeep by 50% across all pirate camps, and no, this does not stack. Crew upkeep is the biggest drain on your resources, especially as you get to the late game. You're making complex things like pistols, jewelry, all that. Your pirates go through it like it's nothing. I swear, with all the sabers my pirates have gone through, they're probably just hucking them at enemy ships, hoping they'll do something. But either way, this reduces that by 50%, which is amazing. Easy S tier, and one of, if not the best building in the game. It is a bit pricey, don't mind that, totally worth it. Another pricey building that is also totally worth it is the Ocean Coliseum, because this resurrects crew lost to 7 Seas events. So let me show you something really cool. So normally, when your ship's health reaches 0, you lose the ship. When crew reaches 0, you also lose the ship. This is where the Ocean Coliseum comes in and does something really cool. So I'm just going to basically pass the turn. I have lost my ship because my crew reached 0. But if I continue, you'll notice it says all lost crew members were resurrected, because my ship is right back completely unharmed and able to go again. That's right, with the Ocean Coliseum, you no longer lose a ship if all the crew are killed. You do fail the event, but you can just immediately retry it with no penalty, which is really awesome. As such, the Ocean Coliseum gets an S tier for sure. Then there's a Golden Palace, the ultimate building for the Wealth Tree, and a symbol that you've been such a successful pirate that you can literally leave gold lying around, despite the fact that everyone on this island is explicitly known for stealing gold. But I guess theft doesn't matter when one has unlimited resources, and that's what this does. All resource deposits become unlimited. This is very nice because it means you can run all hands on deck, you can convert resources however you like, sell them off, all that fun stuff. But I'm going to put it in A tier because this is very much a late game building to solve late game problems. And if you're not doing something wacky, there's a good chance that by the time you unlock the Golden Palace, you're going to be about to win the game anyway. Though, if you're playing on higher difficulties with really low resource caps, this could be a lifesaver. If you deplete a deposit, you do still get to harvest from it. It's just at a 50% reduced capacity, making everything way less efficient. Then last up, we have the Military Fortress. This is the ultimate building from the Empire tree. And I gotta say, this one's a bit unfortunate. It's sold as this ultimate defends your base, destroys everything. But as you can see, there are plenty of attack points here where the Military Fortress cannot reach. And I tried looking around and placing it in different spots. There's always something that was either out of range or blocked by terrain, or just not quite right to defend everything with a single military base. I'm sure with a couple, I could do it. But also, I have a tier 6 destroyer that can do the exact same job, and it just requires a little effort from me. So, I'm not going to say that this building is useless, but I was disappointed in it. And as a result, I'm going to put it in C tier. Now, last up, we have a series of 4 buildings. The Provisioner, the Master Shipwright, the Coppersmith, and the Tinkerer. Each of them allows you to produce a different resource, like hardtack, that would normally require a raid good. So, for example, the Spyglass Maker, which is the normal way to get spyglasses, requires lenses, which you have to raid for, and leather. The Tinkerer requires tools and lime. And since you can produce both of these on your island, you have an unlimited supply with no raid goods needed, making these buildings very good for late game efficiency, but not strictly required. And as such, I'm going to round out the tier list by giving them an A tier. Alright, so here's the tier list. Up in S, these are buildings that I think are must build, that I build all the time, often build multiples of. The reason I'm ranking cabins above houses again, going from tents to cabins, huge jump. Going from cabins to houses, still significant, but smaller jump. Crow's Nest, it's basically an infinite gold cheat. Entertainer's Guild Hall is huge for mid and late game efficiency. Great Lighthouse and Ocean Coliseum completely transform things, and the Shrine of the Sea carries me in the early game. Then going into A, these are all buildings that are great. I will basically be building most of these. The only one that I won't necessarily build all of are the raid good buildings. Every single game. Okay, I guess technically, maybe not Corsair Cuisine either. It's very good though, and I do highly recommend it, but there are a couple runs where I didn't build it. B, it's fine. It gets the job done. You know, it's the banners. It's the buildings that are reliable. But they're not super exciting or sexy. C tier, these are the buildings that I rarely build, or in some cases, I have never built, minus demonstrating in the video, because I don't really see a use for it. That said, if there are any of these buildings down in C tier that you have found super helpful, please let me know what tier you would put it in and why. Also, if you think there's anything that I ranked too highly, say some of the S tier picks, let me know about that as well. But for now, I'm going to get going. If you want to see more Corsair Cove content, don't worry, I got you. I have a beginner's guide to help you get started, tips and tricks, lots of stuff that I picked up while playing, a dedicated guide on building supply chains, and a guide on the best ships, captains, and how to get raid goods. All of those will be up in the card and down below. And if you want even more content from me, well, get subscribed. I'm going to be releasing at least one more video on Corsair Cove, maybe more in the future. And I cover plenty of other games, both of the strategy variety and many other genres as well. But for now, I'm going to get going, so thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.